college or the pros. He got into broadcasting after retiring in 2021. So how is Reddick a candidate for one of the most prestigious jobs in sports? 2 months ago, Reddick started hosting a podcast with LeBron James called Mind the Game. It's a chat where Reddick and LeBron talk about the X's and O's of basketball. This podcast and Reddick's association with LeBron is the only reason Reddick's name is connected to the Lakers coaching search. Stay tuned on this situation. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those Black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one.
Let's bring them back.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of Black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of Black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
I believe up there. Hey!
I see dead people.
What's that on that beat?
Aye, Mustard on the beat. Debo, D-Rap. He a freak though, man down, call her Amber Lambs. Tell him breathe, bro. Nella to the cross, he walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni trying to see Compton? The industry can hate me. Marlon, they mama, how many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton. Beat your and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walking down whole time, I know he got some him. Pull on him, extort, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. To any that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubb's the only one that get your hand-me-downs and party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 that come up. Wop, 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 I'ma do my stuff. Why you trolling like a ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They not like
KBLA
us.
Talk 1580. Okay, well, I'm going to assume that Mr. Nasheed is on his way. Yeah, morning radio. That's how it is. So we'll see if Mr. Nasheed gets here. JR's agreed to stay with me for at least one more segment because I think we were going to talk about the situation in Niger. Because we talked about it. We've talked about it some, actually. We had a community organizer from Niger on who is living here. And we've talked about in the broader context of Africa. But Niger and the United States just reached an agreement on over the weekend to withdraw the military forces there by September 15th. It feels good to see the U.S. and the French leaving, but I'm not convinced that this is all good news because of the, the Russian mercenary forces there. And I feel like a lot of the Wagner Group, a lot of these African countries that are trying to get rid of the U.S. or trying to get rid of the French, they're turning to the Wagner Group, and I don't know that that's a better option.
I can't say that I know the history of the Wagner Group as much as I do of imperialism, but I know that they don't have as bad as a reputation. And I know that the United States commandos and deltas and all these Green Berets and the French and the Mossad and the MI6 and all of these people are coming for those resources. So I agree with you. I believe in 100% independence, but what do you do? And I'm not so much a supporter, but I am somebody that is questioning, what do you do when you're fighting a superpower on your land?
Well, but the thing about the Wagner Group is that they're a private army. They're for hire, right? So they really don't have any accountability.
Right.
And at the same time, Russia is trying to push deeper into Africa, as is China, as is Israel.
Right.
Right? So then there's a new group of colonizers moving in. So now you have the French and the U.S. and, Dutch and all the other European colonizers sort of fighting with these new colonizers. But I don't know that Putin is a better colonizer than the United States. I'm not, I don't, what option does Africa have? Can Africa defend itself without inviting in a Western power like that?
I think that's the big question. And I think that we're talking about a resource grab. What's more important, that countries are going to risk everything. They're going to do it over resources. But I want to get back to what you said in reference to, is Putin better? Now, I'm not somebody that's like pushing Putin and cheerleading for Putin, because again, I do believe in independence, but and self-determination. But at the same time, I think like Malcolm X, we just celebrated Malcolm X's birthday. History is the thing that's best ready to reward our research, is a famous Malcolm X quote. And when we look at a Putin and we look at a China, do they have the same relationship with the smaller countries that they do business with, or I should say plunder? Do they have that same relationship? Does Russia and China have the same relationship with weaker countries that the United States has? I would argue that yes, I'm not acting like trade is totally fair between stronger and weaker nations, but I would argue that Russia has not colonized African countries in the way that...
Not yet.
And that's true, not yet.
I mean, I don't, if you look at what they're doing in Ukraine, which is a European, reportedly white country, why would we assume that they would be better in Africa?
Well, I would argue, take the Ukraine.
I mean, because you think of Russia or the USSR as communist, but they're really not. At this point, it's an oligarchy.
Isn't the world an oligarchy? Show me a country that doesn't have an oligarchy.
Well, you've got super oligarchies, and
Is China an oligarchy? Is the United States an oligarchy?
Yes and yes.
So we basically are all in the same boat.
But that's not all the countries in the world. Those are the superpowers. I mean, the Wagner Group was, founded by this guy Prigozhin, who is if you look into his history, it's problematic, very problematic. There, in terms of the relationship with white supremacy, I think I'm not saying, oh, yay, U.S., no, Russia, but I think that I'm concerned that the African leadership may be fooling themselves into thinking that they're throwing off the French and throwing off the U.S. and getting independence when what they're getting is a mercenary army that answers to Russia.
Well, I just think that the devil is in the details. Now, I don't think that, yes, on a macro level, we should be independent, but Africa needs investment. Africa needs to protect its resources. Now, hopefully, Africa is working out better contractual agreements than what they were doing with their former colonial masters, and in the case of France, their current colonial masters, when they're working out new relationships with Russia and China. Now, I am concerned, looking at China in particular, when China is giving these loans to Africa, and when Africa reneges, they're taking over major ports and major infrastructure in the countries. But what I would argue is that they're taking over an airport, or they're taking over a port, which is major. But the Europeans, take what Belgium did in the Congo. That was King Leopold's backyard and his little pet project. Now, I'm not arguing one form of oppression is better than another form of oppression, because a lack of independence is a lack of independence. A lack of self-determination is a lack of self-determination. But the question is, how do you get out of the hole?
Yeah, that is the question. And honestly, I've traveled in Africa, and extensively, and I feel like the Chinese are maybe kinder, gentler colonizers. In Senegal, they rebuilt the sewer infrastructure, built a modern highway that goes all the way around the city, and a very grand arts and culture center downtown. But they're still extracting wealth. They're still
they didn't do it for free.
The human resources. No, surely not.
Well, I think that we have to be real with it. No one's going to help Africa for free, including Africans from other different parts of it. The reality is it's going to take money. Now, the question is how much, and it is going to be an exploitative relationship similar to the relationships we've had in the past, or can we make it less exploitative? And at the point of not having power, what does not having power mean? It means that you get exploited in the relationships. It means you don't
have the power to control your resources, for one thing.
Or your relationships.
And you're labeled as poor even when you have grand wealth, vast wealth, like the Congo. And since you brought up King Leopold, I think it's worth mentioning for those that don't track that under Leopold's so-called reign, somewhere between 1 million and 15 million black people were murdered in the Congo. And often mutilated and tortured and all kinds of other things.
Many a times in world history, especially in the United States and Western media, they teach us about Hitler. And Hitler has 6 million. And of course, murder is murder and genocide is genocide. But Leopold was almost double in murders as in comparison to Hitler, but since his victims were the Congolese, where you can still see signs of it that are celebrated when you buy chocolate and you see a chocolate hand, and you could buy it at See's Candy right now and they have chocolate hands. That's to commemorate where Leopold will cut off Congolese hands when they would not get enough minerals that he thought they should have for the day. So people are still celebrating, or I should say still commemorating Leopold's reign, as well as we're not acknowledging the genocide that Leopold initiated that I would argue possibly was worse than the Holocaust. And now if you put Leopold's Holocaust in the Congo with the current day Holocaust in the Congo, we're definitely talking about one of the genocides, the Congolese genocide, the first one and the second one, being one of the most gruesome genocides in modern history of an area.
Yeah, I did not know that about the See's Candy situation and those black hands, but I did know that Leopold was famous for chopping off people's hands, among other kinds of brutal colonial tortures. So, which brings us back to Niger real quick there, and that whole region where they're really...
the Sahel.
They're really,
region.
which where they're really looking to expel the French is what it comes down to, and the U.S.
Yes. And I think it's a very interesting time because you mentioned Kwame Nkrumah. It's giving me that kind of vibe. I mean, I know that these are military. These are militaries that are overthrowing the colonial governments.
Right. They're military coups. They're
Right.
kicking out the U.S., but they're not democratically elected folks. So what's interesting is what happens next.
Right. So I think Mali has set a date, Mali being one of the big four, and Mali has set a date so that civilian rule can come back. But people are waiting for Niger, Burkina Faso, and Chad is, I think, adding itself to the Sahel groups that are rebelling. But what I think is very important that I wanted to bring out about Niger is that the French is extracting uranium from Niger. We're extracting uranium. And what's important to note about that is that the French, their whole electrical system in France is ran off of nuclear power. 1/3 of that power was coming from Niger. 1/3 of the uranium to power the everyday activities of French society was coming from Niger. What happens when that gets cut off, or when they don't want to pay, when they don't want to pay basically, or get it where the French aren't getting it for free like they used to, and now that they have to pay market price, what's going to happen to French society? Now you also got Haiti going up and causing problems for the French. You also got Macron, who's the president of France, trying to get involved more in the Ukraine, and is even telling Putin and the European Union that he's going to put boots on the ground. Putin is threatening to nuke France. So I mean, France is really with his back up against the imperial wall and not looking like the imperial master has it all under control. France is definitely has a target on it, and people that are fighting for self-determination all around the world, especially against France, seem to be winning and progressing, and I think that's very interesting.
And to your point, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have pulled out of the economic community of West African states, ECOWAS, and they are, because they say the French have too much power in that organization, even though I've seen that organization do some great work, particularly in Senegal, where they were able to keep that democracy there intact, and they're going to make their own confederation. So it's definitely a shift in power, and I do think that it's important for us to understand the reason why a lot of African nations, like the ones we're talking about, do not align with U.S. policy around Ukraine, for example, is that they are now more aligned with Russia, whether it be through trading with Russia, or whether it be through actually those leaders calling in and hiring the Wagner Group to act as mercenaries and kick out the French and other European or Western colonizers.
Yeah, I think it's a very important time where I haven't seen this much continue. These countries are right next to each other. And one of the points I wanted to bring up before I lose the point is that Senegal, because you brought up Senegal, in the last few weeks, they just elected a 38-year-old president, one of the youngest presidents. The first thing he said is that he wanted to get the French out of his country also.
Of course. I mean, in Senegal, French-speaking, Muslim country, beautiful country. I loved it so much there. But also, if you look at Senegal, it's really interesting. They're very devout Muslims there. It's right next door to Gambia. Like, you could literally walk across. Gambia, colonized by the English. It's a tourist playground. It's very, loose, let me put it that way. You go to Senegal, it's not that it's repressive, but they're very devout, and they have almost no HIV. They don't date, they marry. It's a very different vibe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with that country, which has a big investment, as I pointed out, from China. Because you look at Dakar, they've invested hugely in that infrastructure there in Dakar.
But see, I think that's the reality. I was just having this discussion with one of my friends yesterday who was saying that he thinks very similar to the discussion that we're having, that Africa shouldn't be being more friends with Russia and China, and that we should be more, or Africa should be more leaning towards a non-aligned movement than cozying up to Russia and China.
But you have to have allies. I understand that.
And you also have to have investment.
Yeah,
the money doesn't just come from anywhere.
Well, if these Western powers and non-Western powers would pay for the minerals instead of stealing them, then they would have the money. But when now you look at the emergence of BRICS, that new intergovernmental organization, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and UAE. And I'd imagine more African nations will follow, which is a kind of a competing block of power. JR, thanks for staying with me and keeping the conversation going. We got a little. We went to school with JR Valrey on some international issues, so we can do better because we know better.
Definitely. Well, thank you for being on it, and thank you for having me on, but also thank you for entertaining the discussion so that people can be more informed as to what's happening in the world, as well as making it cool in the Black community for us to be informed about what's happening in the world.
Yeah, well, we got to do that. Appreciate your work, and now I can say with confidence that Tariq Nasheed is next because he's actually sitting in the conference room. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
This is DIR Silica, spot title, in California, 32nd English Radio, ISKI code, DSIC 0430, April 30th, 2024.
In California, the use of man-made stone is causing workers to get silicosis. Silicosis is a fatal disease caused by breathing in silica dust from cutting, polishing, or grinding man-made stone. To prevent silicosis, employers must provide their workers proper equipment, including water systems and NIOSH-approved respirators. Stop dusty and deadly practices. Learn more at worksafewithsilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Ooh, I'm so ready for this weekend away with my girls.
Hey, hit the road? How about some free gas?
Free gas? How?
Try new Febreze car for some serious freshness and you can win gas for a full year. Visit Febreze.com to learn more.
Say less.
You may not win, but you're gonna have a fresh smelling whip.
Thanks, DJ Fresh. Now how about some music?
Hey, yo, this next one goes out to new Febreze car for giving you a chance to win free gas. La, 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 la.
No purchase necessary. Must be 18 to enter in 73124 for rules and how to enter. Visit Febreze.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I said a hip hop, the hip it to the hip hop, you don't stop the rockin' to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike and I like to say hello. Up to the black, to the white, the red, and the brown, the purple, and yellow. But first I gotta bang bang the boogie to the boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the bang bang boogie. Let's rock. You don't stop, rock the rhythm that'll make your body rock. Well, so far you've heard my voice, but I brought two friends along.
KBLA Talk 1580. Why am I playing that? Well, I think you know Tariq Nasheed. He's in the studio. You know him from Hidden Colors. You know him from the FBA movement, from the Hidden History Museum, and for Stirring the Pot. Generally Stirring the Pot. He's an author and much, much more. He's here in studio with me. What you might not know is that he has a documentary film out right now, or dropping
Yes.
Today?
Yes,
Is it today, tomorrow?
Tomorrow and the rest of the week. The whole weekend.
It's called Mic Check.
Microphone check.
Microphone checker. Yeah. And it's all focused on hip hop. Yes. Welcome, Tariq Nasheed.
Thank you so much, Dominique. How are you, beloved?
I'm blessed. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me here.
How be you?
I'm good. I'm just glad to be here with you. You are a radio legend.
Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
Appreciate that. I see you got your FBA rally shirt on. Rally for Reparations. Wasn't going to start there, but since the shirt is staring at us, you have a rally going on June 15th.
Yes, we have a rally going on June 15th. We have a lot of phenomenal speakers and activists. We have Big Daddy Kane performing there. And we're just going to keep the message of reparations up in the forefront because we are trying to get tangibles out here for our community.
Big Daddy Kane is a reparationist?
Well, he's performing, so
he gonna be a reparationist.
It's a Juneteenth celebration too. We're celebrating Juneteenth, so it's a fun time. So everybody's coming out to DC on the 15th of June. So it's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to come back. I know you want to talk about hip hop, and we will. Mm-hmm. But we do every Friday around here. We do Freedman Fridays, and we focus on reparations because I feel like the momentum is so strong that we have to continuously talk about it, center the conversation, and make sure we're up on all the things that are happening.
Absolutely. We absolutely have to do that because a lot of times when we talk about reparations, we'll get some pushback and then the energy just kind of dissipates. This time that hasn't happened. There's a lot of people trying to push back, but we're still standing firm and saying, hey, this is what we need. The time is now. We can't keep pushing our tangibles on the back burner.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think we are not going to give up this time.
Absolutely.
Just keep pushing the line. Mm-hmm. So Microphone Check is about hip hop.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm a longtime aficionado of hip hop. I looked at the film last evening. It was interesting to see all of those, real legends, right? Mm-hmm. The icons who go back to the 70s, even the 60s.
Yes. Yes.
And we're celebrating the 50-year anniversary, but you kind of, in the film, almost dispute the official origin story.
Well, yeah, a lot of the people who were there, there's been a lot of myths and misconceptions just about that party alone. The party that happened in 1973, a lot of people...
DJ Kool Herc.
Yeah, DJ Kool Herc. The narrative is there was a party in 1973 in August at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. And that party has become very mythical because everybody and their mama say they were there. And we talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the film, they said, hey, some of these people weren't there. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. This happened. This happened. So we're just getting the story straight because with hip-hop, there's been so many myths thrown out there. There has never been a definitive story. So we tried to be as definitive as we could in this film.
I'm laughing because I found that out as we're doing the Bay Area Hip Hop Archive and things that people who weren't even born yet are saying, I was at a thing. Wait, weren't you born in 84? Like, how could you be at something in 1963?
Right. So.
So we'll talk more about that and why, this is controversial because pretty much everything you do is that.
Yeah.
When we come forward after News, Traffic, and Sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Donald Trump's defense team is resting its case today in his criminal hush money trial. The New York judge told the jury the best thing to do is to adjourn for today and hear summations next Tuesday after Memorial Day. The judge added he would expect the jury will begin deliberations hopefully at some point on Wednesday. More affordable housing is being made available to New Yorkers. Mayor Eric Adams' administration says the New York City Housing Authority will begin accepting applications for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. The program provides rental subsidies for eligible low-income families to rent in the private market. The African-American mayor says it's another step in getting the city a step closer to reaching 500,000 new homes by 2032. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lakers fans may not like what they're about to hear, but I need to warn you about something. There are NBA sources everywhere who believe former Clippers guard J.J. Redick is emerging as the frontrunner for the Lakers head coaching vacancy. J.J. Redick, the guy you occasionally see on ESPN working as an NBA analyst. Redick has never coached in high school, college, or the pros. He got into broadcasting after retiring in 2021. So how is Redick a candidate for one of the most prestigious jobs in sports? 2 months ago, Redick started hosting a podcast with LeBron James called Mind the Game. It's a chat where Redick and LeBron talk about the X's and O's of basketball. This podcast and Redick's association with LeBron is the only reason Redick's name is connected to the Lakers coaching search. Stay tuned on this situation. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Every day, millions face challenges that go unseen. Mental health issues affect not just individuals, but the relationships that matter most to them. Over 80% of those suffering with mental health conditions acknowledge the strain on their families. Parents grappling with depression or anxiety find even simple tasks overwhelming. At work, challenges can lead to communication breakdowns, jeopardizing careers and professional relationships. For those caring for loved ones, burnout is a stark reality. The weight of caregiving responsibilities can feel insurmountable. Children, too, feel this impact, often taking on more at home, sacrificing schoolwork and time with friends. But there's hope. Seeking support can change lives. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's heal the relationships that matter most to us. It's okay to pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources.
City of Los Angeles landlords, verify your tenant's emergency renters assistance program status today. Tenants approved for rental assistance are protected from eviction for non-payment of rent through May 31st, 2024. Approved rental assistance applications protect tenants from eviction for non-payment of rent. Refusing to accept rental assistance based on their source of income is illegal under law and can be used as a defense in an eviction case. Check your tenant's application status now at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love along this ride. That's why Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and Affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with Tariq Nasheed. He's in studio with us if you want to tap in on YouTube at KBLA 1580. So the film out now, microphone check.
Yes, it'll be out this week.
It is sort of, you say, telling the origin stories of hip-hop in general as an art form. And you are really establishing the fact that this is a Black American art form. You go as far, and that's not surprising because it's you, to claim it as FBA, Foundational Black American. And some folks have called it divisive. I imagine that's because you take a position that Latinos are not part of the creation of hip hop.
And because of the 50th anniversary, we've heard this narrative that hip hop was created by Blacks and Latinos 50-50. And that's a revision of history. Because in the early stages of hip hop, in the origin of it, it was all Black people in the Bronx. And these Black people were folks who came in from the South. Their families came from the South. So they were getting a lot of those funk influences, a lot of the rhyming and playing the dozens, that kind of influence. At the time, remember, in the late 60s, early 70s, it was Muhammad Ali. These were our icons. He's going around rhyming. You had Dolomite.
Tons of poets.
Right. The Watts Prophets. The Last Poets. So
Scott Heron, my dad, and on and on.
Right. So that was the thing.
That was a Black American thing.
That was a Black American thing.
Understood. But the thing is, where does the 50-50 come from? Because I've been hearing a lot of narrative about Latino influence, and I've witnessed it both in New York and here, but I never heard so much the 50-50 thing.
Right. And the thing is, and as you saw in the film, the pioneers said the Latinos came in later and did great things. They with the break-in, they continued it because the first generation B-boys, after a while, they just kind of put breaking to the side and started doing other stuff. But the Latinos came in the late 70s, early 80s, and they kind of revised it. And they get credit for that. But as far as the origin, creating it, all of the elements come from foundational Black American culture. And another narrative was that we were getting things from the Caribbean, and we had to clarify that narrative. We weren't doing Jamaican toasting. We weren't listening to those types of records. Hip-hop was coming from funk records, and we were using the rhyme that we were already doing while we were playing the dozens, and we just put it on wax.
I think, I don't claim to be a hip-hop historian. I'm more like a hip-hop Forrest Gump. I'm always in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing on the right microphone. But I've never said that I'm some expert. But I have seen, in New York and in the Bay Area, I have seen the participation of other cultures. I have seen us listening to reggae and dancehall. I haven't, and I even see the relationship of hip hop to Africa in terms of the call and response, the use of syncopation, the drum, even some of our dance moves. But I don't know that means that it's Jamaican dance hall as a form.
Yeah, the thing is, when it comes to anything we create, for some reason, there's been this desire to take it out of foundational Black American culture and attribute it to Africa, which, Africa, we have an African lineage.
Well, all people do.
Right.
All people in the world, in the universe do. But
right.
But
hip-hop was cultivated with us here.
Of course, but still, the call and response is for example, is a fundamental African element that has impacted most all world culture. So why is it important to not acknowledge that?
Because there is no African Nas. There is no African Jay-Z. The continuity has to be there at a certain position. The continuity was there with us. We created a certain continuity and did something else with it and made it unique to our ethnogenesis here. So that's why we sound different. We rap different from people in Africa and all of these other places. The swag and the energy is different. We have a different energy because we went through a different traumatic experience and a positive experience as well. But we've had different experiences that has our energy levels different. So we create things differently and put a different flavor on it.
I mean, to me, when you talk, and you do talk about this in the documentary, when you talk about jazz or blues or R&B or hip hop, you are talking about uniquely Black American art forms. I would not argue that. And I've heard some people doing that, and I think it's, that means they aren't paying attention or they don't know history. But why is it important to subtract others from it?
Because what happens is if we start doing everybody was in the origin of it, what always happens, it gets taken away from us. With jazz created by foundational Black Americans in New Orleans.
AKA Black people.
Right. Then some Italians made a record early on, and then they started claiming jazz came from Italy.
Right, yeah. Right. I mean, I remember reading that history. But the thing about it is, as we are all descendants of Africa, or all people, white people, Black people, how far back do you want to go? I understand what you're saying. I feel like, yes, we've had rock and roll ripped off from us. We've had jazz ripped off from us. And we're barely, and when I look around now and I see all these rappers who are not Black, who are taking over the industry, it does give me pause.
Right.
Because I know there was a time they never would have been able to cut it.
And the thing is, again, when we don't gatekeep the culture, when we circle back around to the culture we created, people will treat us like guests in the cultures we created, like our sister Beyonce. Beyonce did a country album. Right. They're acting like she's a guest in country. Right. That's a foundational Black American genre. But people get this sense of entitlement when we share everything. They say, hey, wait a minute, I've stolen that from you years ago. How dare you come claim it again?
Right.
We don't want that to happen to hip hop. That's why we're saying, hey, this is where it came from, and this is the definitive story.
But as someone who was there pretty early adopter, whichever the term is, of hip hop myself since a little kid, right? And going to see, going to New York, My dad's from Newark, as you know, my mom. And then being in the Bay Area, there's a point in the doc where you say someone says we should have more Asians because they're making all of the electronics.
Yeah,
or
that was
whatever.
another narrative. They were saying that last year.
But Asians in the Bay Area, Asians were there pretty early on as DJs and dancers.
In the 80s, they came in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, they came later. They were students. Yeah, but we're not saying that other people can't participate in it. That's why it's for everybody to participate in. That's fine, but we have to respect the origin of it. We have to respect where it comes from. And then when people try to muddy the waters of the origin of it, they try to say, well, y'all actually black folks, y'all got it from us, so y'all need to thank us for it. And we're not playing that game. We got to tell the truth.
Well, I on that I do agree with you. I take issue with that, but I've also seen there is something I've only watched the doc once, so I can't really pinpoint it. But there's a conversation. It might be you saying that if you go to, it is you. In fact, I remember if you go to a lot of radio stations, music stations now, you'll see nothing but Latinos. You'll see Latinos, DJs, program directors. And no black people, and it's a hip hop station.
You see that a lot.
But those are customers, aren't they?
Well, the thing
because the music they're playing is not exclusively Latino. Most of those records, most of them are black people.
Yeah, right. And out here in LA, you know how the radio stations are.
I do.
You know how it is. The program directors, I don't know any black program directors out here in radio in LA.
Other than the station you're sitting in.
Right, this one here, and that's why we're here.
And Stevie Wonder's station, of course.
Right,
yeah.
but the program director there, we won't promote the station. We're not going to promote.
My former home, we love Stevie.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Like I've had this conversation so many times. If a Latino station is playing black music, black people are eating off that. If Latinos are buying, black hip hop, black owned hip hop gear, or even making their own, how is that problematic?
Because the thing is, when there has to be a balance in hip hop, because what happens is when there was a balance, when we had black programmers and black people kind of controlling the sound of it, there was a balance. The peak of hip hop was 1988. 88 was very important. That's the golden era of hip hop. 88, because so many artists in 1988, it was so diverse, and everybody was on code in hip hop. You had, for a nerd, you could do Kid and Play. If you're a girl, you had Salt and Pepper. If you were a gangster, you had NWA and Eazy-E. You had Heavy D. It was so diverse then. It was a balance, and that was the golden era. There's not a balance now in hip hop. Right now, we get Sexy Red, Cardi B. I mean, we get the same thing over and over again. It's a cookie cutter thing. And
in terms of the mass commercial,
right,
because you still have artists making music.
And you don't have us there saying, hey, there needs to be balance. Everything is a one-track stereotype to a certain degree, and those stereotypes fit the sensibility of these program directors. But did we control it in the
golden era? Because we still had record labels that were controlling who gets signed and what they put out. You still had managers.
The artists were on code then, because remember when they had the Grammys, they were going to give rap a Grammy, and they said, we're going to give you guys a Grammy, but we're not going to air it. So all the rappers got together on their own, and they say, hey, we're going to boycott the Grammys. They were on code. At the time in the late 80s, when they tried to say Vanilla Ice was the king of rap, a lot of folks don't remember that. They were saying,
I do.
Yeah, you remember? They were trying to make him the Elvis of rap.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and arguably people do that with Eminem now.
Right, but back then they checked that.
Who was produced by Dre.
Right.
Who was...
Because Vanilla, he came in on his own.
Lots of black people say he's the greatest.
Mm-hmm. And I like Eminem, but, you can't be the greatest if there's Rakim there, and Nas is there.
And Kendrick.
Right, and Kendrick. Exactly.
I'm just saying. Okay, anyway. So, but the real question is, when did we ever control the industry? And who has the ability to put out a record? I understand what you're saying about the solidarity that the example that you're giving there.
Right, because back in the golden era, I think hip-hop was really, a lot of it was dictated by what was happening in the streets. The corporate structure, they didn't have the stranglehold they have on it now, because in the 80s, corporate hip-hop was relatively new. So it was still street control. What went on in the streets, they kind of dictated what went down. That's why hip-hop in the 80s was drug-free. They decidedly said, hey, crack ain't cool. That's why crackers looked down. No. In the 80s? Dominique, in the 80s.
There were no drug dealers in hip-hop.
In the 80s, they talked down on hip hop. Now NWA, they weren't really bragging about drugs, or they had a consequence.
They might not have put it on their record.
They had a consequence. Okay. No, on record. We're talking about on record. What was promoted? Because Easy and those guys, they didn't talk about drugging up and all of that stuff. Right. They didn't even talk about selling it like that. But if they did, they put a consequence on it. Right. Ice-T, he talked about drug dealers and hustlers, but there was always a consequence to it.
I'm just saying. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying.
You're talking about what's on vinyl.
Right. Well, what they were promoting to the public. Right. They had self-destruction and all of that. You understand?
Right.
So, yeah, they were decidedly against crack at the time. Now, drugs are promoted.
Unless they were selling
they rap about getting high
right.
and doing hardcore drugs now. So, and that's because of the corporate structure. They have more control on it, on the genres now.
Talking with Tariq Nasheed. The documentary is called Microphone Check, and it's coming out this week.
Yes.
And you'll be able to find it. There's screenings going across the country.
Yeah, we got screenings all over in select cities. I'm here in L.A. Thursday at the Fine Arts Theater. Go to microphonecheck.com. It's in San Diego, Oakland, Dallas. It's all over. There's another big premiere in New York, so I'm jet-setting all around the country.
And I'm sure they'll be arguing about it on Twitter, but we'll get to that when we come forward. We're talking with Tariq Nasheed on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
I feel occasional burning and stabbing in my hands as I age.
I sometimes feel numbness and tingling in my feet as I get older.
It's starting to get in the way of doing what I love.
At Nervive, we hear you, and we can help. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use.
Now that I know, I'm taking control.
Try Nervive Nerve Relief and say yes to healthy nerves. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go.
The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Tariq Nasheed is here in the studio. You know him from the Hidden Colors series. You know him from the FBA movement, from the Hidden History Museum, which is here, actually right down the street in Los Angeles, still going. But now he's got a film, documentary, microphone check. It's got a lot of treasures, speaking of hidden treasures.
What did you learn that you didn't know when you saw the film?
From watching the film, I didn't know that the whole story about the equipment, how, who had the ability to do parties and stuff was so based on who had equipment.
Right.
I did not know that as that feud between disco DJs
and hip hop
DJs. Because my experience as a kid in New York was you'd see people playing disco and people would be doing the hustle or whatever, and then they'd go to the James Brown and the B-boys would start breaking and stuff. But it wasn't like a conflict the way they had it. It was like different shifts, but I don't think I was in the fancy clubs. I was like, So that was new, and I think it was interesting to hear people like Lord Jamar talking about their perspective of the relationship between black and brown, actually, too.
Yeah, I think that those are very interesting points. A lot of folks don't know that in early hip-hop, they made a distinction between the disco DJs and the hip-hop DJs, and there were disco DJs who rapped, but they still weren't considered hip-hop. Like, DJ Hollywood, he's in the film, and he was a very influential person on rap. A lot of people got their rhyme cadence from him, but they don't really consider him hip-hop because he didn't like all the breaking because he was at upscale parties.
Right.
So he's like, hey, don't bring that breaking in here.
Right.
So they've always said, hey, you're not really, really hip-hop, but he influenced hip-hop. So there's a lot of dichotomies there that we explore in the film.
I like the way that you also give a little hat tip to those of us who are on the mic as radio hosts, because a lot of those early radio hosts did rhyme and they did sort of MC parties and whatever. Of course, I did the opposite. I was started as a rapper, and that's how I got into TV and radio. But there's so much crossover in the culture.
Yes, indeed.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So when you talk about reclaiming this story, and you're really specific, not just African American or black, but to FBA, and I think that's another reason people may find it divisive. We in the ongoing conversation about reparations, which we do every Friday around here, the lineage versus legacy is always a conversation, right? And there's this some people are rejecting Pan-Africanism, other people, have their own opinions. My question is this: I feel like there's a lot of value to the specificity that you're talking about. Know who your specific ancestors are, and to giving respect to Black Americans and our unique story and contribution. No problem with that. Why does it require the demonization of immigrants? Why does it require, terms like tether and sort of a rejection or disunity from the broader global Black community? Not to say that we're all the same or that we don't require specificity and credit, but why is animosity part of it?
Well, the thing is, what we do is a response to the animosity, and we call it out, because what has happened is that of the groups who come into our circles who are not of our lineage, they have undermined and sabotaged our reparations claims, and that's been a problem. In fact, when they had some of these reparations commissions early on, they would get people like Candace Owens. Candace Owens identifies as being Caribbean. They got another guy named Coleman Hughes who works for one of these little white supremacist think tanks. He's Puerto Rican. But these guys aesthetically look Black. and they'll get up here saying,
well, they are. I mean, they are black. They're of African descent.
Right, but they're not foundational black Americans.
Right.
So they don't have an allegiance.
Or black Americans at all.
Right. So they don't have an allegiance to our lineage. And if you don't have an allegiance to the lineage, you'll undermine what you don't really have an allegiance to. See, the white supremacists, they were very strategic in getting certain black people and elevating them in positions over us.
I mean, but we have people that undermine our culture in every community, including foundation. I mean, is Clarence Thomas, does he have allegiance to the culture?
No, but we call our sellouts, we call them out so that they're not out here misrepresenting us. Clarence Thomas don't represent nobody in foundational black American society. He's persona non grata. He can't come in these circles. A person like Jesse Lee Peterson, who's a foundational black American, but this guy he thinks he's in the year 1830. Yeah. He's not our representative. So we call those folks out. What happens is you'll get a lot of people who are non-FBA who come in our circles and they'll talk like us and they'll cosplay as us. But then at the end of the day, they'll turn around and undermine any type of reparations claim that we have because they don't really have an allegiance if they can't get anything out of it. See, that's the thing. There's so much entitlement that other people have benefited off what we've done, off minority programs, affirmative action programs. We would suffer, kick in the doors, and all these other groups come and benefit and then tell us that we didn't work hard. So there's been a lot of animosity towards foundational black Americans, and we're saying, hey, enough is enough. We can't be misrepresented out here.
Why the vitriol? Real talk, Tariq. Your folks came for me once, and it can be vitriolic. Being called a tether or a bed wench, which
But there's some FBA bed wenches too. So
I mean is that sexist? Is that misogynistic?
No.
It feels like it when someone calls you that.
No, a bed wench. If you're undermining the community because you're laying up with somebody who's putting a bug in your ear about undermining your own community or people who look like you, that's a person who should be ostracized.
What's the male version of a bed wench?
A bed bug. There's bed bugs. There's a lot of bed bugs out here. We call the bed bugs out. We call them out too. Clarence Thomas is a bed bug. We call them all out.
Do you think, and we this will be too, I can't even ask you because I probably don't have time, but I always feel like why are we relinquishing the claim and the riches that are ours to be claimed on the motherland?
Because they're not claiming them on the motherland. Let's keep it a buck. They're getting the hell up out of Africa. They're bouncing from Africa. And we want them to get on code. We've been trying to go over there and build with them. And the brothers and sisters, it's too tribalistic. There's a problem with tribalism over there. They don't have it together. There's not one Africa. You got to have visas and passports to go all over the continent. And the tribalism there, that is a problem. And what happens is a lot of people bring that tribalism over here to us, and we don't really like that we don't play that game. We try to stay on code. This is why we get stuff done. We can get stuff done because we stay on code. And foundational black Americans, we've stayed on code as black people more than any other group. This is why we've accomplished so much stuff. This is why foundational black Americans, our icons are respected and revered worldwide. We're like one of the few groups that have internationally recognized icons that are respected all over the world.
I do not have time for my follow-up questions to that, so I'm going to leave it right there. Tavis Smiley's up next, and your film is out now.
Yes.
It is microphonecheck.com.
Microphonecheck.com. If you're in LA, come on out to the Fine Arts Theater this Thursday. Come see it. Go to microphonecheck.com. People all over the country at a select theater near you. It's a very, very phenomenal film. You guys are going to learn a lot about hip-hop culture.
Absolutely. Tariq Nasheed, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much, beloved.
Tavis Smiley is up next. I'm Dominique DiPrima. History is now, and we're making it together. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Donald Trump's defense team is resting its case today in his criminal hush money trial. The New York judge told the jury the best thing to do is to adjourn for today and hear summations next Tuesday after Memorial Day. The judge added he would expect the jury will begin deliberations hopefully at some point on Wednesday. More affordable housing is being made available to New Yorkers. Mayor Eric Adams' administration says the New York City Housing Authority will begin accepting applications for the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. The program provides rental subsidies for eligible low-income families to rent in the private market. The African-American mayor says it's another step in getting the city a step closer to reaching 500,000 new homes by...
You may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure